Hey guys, what's up? Uh, I'm sure you guys definitely by now know about what's been going on in Wisconsin with the teachers unions and the other state workers unions fighting with the governor over collective bargaining. And I'm sure you know about the movements that have been popping up in this country as other unions show their support for their own protests for the workers in Wisconsin. There's been a lot of support rising up. Hell, even people in Wisconsin who weren't being affected by the collective bargaining laws that are happening, like the policemen and the firemen, have been throwing their weight behind the teachers. And it's not just Wisconsin that this is happening, and other states with Republican governors are trying to start their own bills, and they've been trying to demonize state unions, teachers unions, and so on and so forth. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about this specific event. I mean, it should be obvious what's going on, though. I mean, the whole talk about, oh, we're doing this to balance the budget rings hollow to a thinking mind. In effect, telling a group of people that we basically don't want you to have... They're basically saying, like, look, in order for us to balance our books, we need to make sure that you guys cannot have a say in how we pay you, and how we treat you, and in what type of benefits we give you for the amount of work we want you to do in order to run the state and to ensure that we have a future. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous to suggest that this is the sort of thing you need to balance the budget. There are much more practical ways of doing that. Like, for instance, increasing the tax revenue and getting it from the people who have the actual money, i.e. the rich. Making sure to slash programs that, have little to do with actually keeping the state alive and keeping the citizens, fit and healthy enough to continue doing the work that makes the state and thus the economy prosperous. Cutting these type of social programs is only going to guarantee that you're not going to have able-bodied and able-minded people to continue to run the place as the years go by. It's basic upkeep. But that makes too much sense, so we can't go that route. No, we can't do that. And besides, the governor's corporate masters won't let them. So this is what you got. But I don't want to focus too much on that. Rather, I want to kind of focus more on the fact that there are still a growing number of Americans who can't stand unions, who see them as some type of evil force in this country that, they're corrupt, they're bad, they have to be wiped out. It would be better for the job market at large if we didn't have them. And talk about brainwashing. It's an effective job. Now, granted, there are corrupt unions out there. But by and large, the perception of unions being this malevolent force is bullshit. There aren't that many fucked up unions out there. I will say that there are a hell of a lot of neutered unions out there, particularly in the private sector, where they're kind of there mostly for show. They really don't fight the battle for their workers all that well. And, they collect the union dues, and then when it's time for bargaining, they pretty much bend over backwards for the boss as he continues to strip away the benefits, from the workers and continue to cut their pay so that he can get his extra car. You got unions like that which pretty much paved the way for that. And then, of course, you got, your standard union of, they collect all the dues so that the head of the unions can run off with their extra car. But for the most part, many of these unions that are in this country today aren't like that. They're actually trying to guarantee that the workers that they represent earn a living wage, have decent health care benefits, and, can make a living doing the job that's allowing their company and the CEOs that run it to basically stay rich. So anyway, yeah, I want to focus on this weird, because I consider it weird, hatred for unions. For the many of the Americans who don't like unions, and they tend to be of the right-wing persuasion, I noticed something interesting. Many of the people who are complaining about the evils of unions are the same types who complain about the fact that our jobs are being sent overseas, and that we're having a vanishing middle class. Do they not see the pattern here? I mean, never mind, by the way, that, it's funny that the same people who complain about losing a vanishing middle class and that our jobs are being sent overseas are the same people who champion capitalism, not understanding that capitalism is the thing that allows this to go on, but I digress. One of the major reasons why this country had a growing middle class to begin with was because of unions. The fact that Americans seem to have forgotten this is appalling. It seems that Americans just do not have a mind for their own history. Oh, sure, they'll remember what their leaders claim to have done, but when it comes down to what really created this country's history, what really helped to develop the rights and values of this country, were from populist movements, from people fighting against the powers that be, and wresting power from them in order to guarantee that the citizens have a leg to stand on. That's where you get your rights. For all the evil that unions are supposed to have done, they also pretty much help to guarantee that you have a 40-hour work week instead of something like a 60 or 100-hour work week. They guarantee that, well, for the most part, they bargain so that the general 9 to 5, you get weekends off, you get paid vacations, you get sick leave. We're trying to fight for parental leave, proper treatment for women who are pregnant. Workers' safety laws, they were trying to enact for better working conditions, especially for safety, which has been going downhill ever since, the 60s, 70s, especially the 80s when Reagan came in. There was a lot of damage done when it comes to safety. Chopping off regulations, branches of government like OSHA, for instance, in the name of creating smaller government. These types of things were fought for by unions for the benefit of their workers. And, of course, one of the major things is pay, your paycheck, your wages. If you're earning a living wage, in fact, if you're earning higher than a living wage, a decent pay. Like, for instance, the fact that, a lot of factories, before they started closing down left and right, used to be a fairly decent job because of the wage and benefits that you would get. And that's where you got that working class mentality, which later on moved to a middle class mentality. Unions helped to create that. The private sector does not want to pay living wages. Look at the types of battles we see. Whenever somebody tries to institute a living wage as a law, the first people to jump up and say, oh, we don't want that shit, are business owners, CEOs, shareholders. They're always against that shit. And they always complain that it's a strain on their pocket. No, it's a strain on their extra profits, their bottom line. And it's not that much of a strain. Remember, these are people who have multi-million-dollar homes and tons of cars and yachts and all this type of extra shit, and yet they still don't want to give the workers who gave them that wealth the money that they deserve. And somehow that's okay. Think about this, guys. I know there's a lot of people who go with that Ayn Rand philosophy of, the individual who's better than everybody else and who can't be held back by the masses. But if you for 1 second decide to put your ego aside and stop imagining yourself as this Ubermensch, the realization will come to you that you can't do shit on your own. I don't care how great you think you are, you still are going to need other people in order to get yourself somewhere. Look at, for instance, let's take Walmart, all right, which is probably one of the biggest anti-union companies around, all right? Walmart's a huge industry. And the guy who ran it will be, he's always going to come up with some type of rags to riches story about how I started from here, down here, and I worked my way up, and I'm up here, and I'm this great business guy, and I did this on my own, and none of bullshit. Because first of all, you need to sell products. You didn't make those products on your own. You had to go to somebody else to make them. Somebody's making those t-shirts. Somebody's manufacturing the tools, the car parts, packaging the food, the housewares, all those things, getting in the electronic gadgets and stuff that's in the store. People made that shit. Tons of people. Then a whole bunch of other people built the stores that you were going to put the stuff in. And then a whole bunch of people worked the wiring in there to keep the lights on. had to set up the pipes and stuff for gas or oil, whatever it is, to keep the place heated up. You had janitors in there to help clean up the bathrooms. Well, not janitors, that's wrong. They have their regular staff now in Walmart. I misspoke. You have to have people to shelve the items, to hang up the clothes, to display everything for people to sell. You need cashiers. You need customer service reps. You then need managers to manage all these people. And you need to do this multiple times, which means even more people need to help set this shit up. So you didn't do this on your own, Mr. Businessman. And all these people, because of their hard work, made you and your CEOs and your shareholders rich. Filthy rich. And then, to thank your workers for putting you in such financial independence, in such luxury, you pay them minimum wage. I don't care what side of the political line you happen to put yourself on. If you have a conscience and you think about that for a second, it should sicken you to your stomach when you think, how much money are these guys rolling? And it's based on your work, and you still end up earning a paycheck which, quite frankly, has you scrambling to pay your bills and hardly any benefits. Does that seem fair? This is why unions were instituted, so that you would get some type of fair payment for your work. You have to think about the environment that you're in the United States. There are no real social networks that will help you out. The rich and the right wing have pretty much set things up so that you don't have health care, you don't have a social network to help you out, you don't really have a leg to stand on. Everything's basically going to be built. You either have to work for somebody else to help them to be rich, or you're going to have to commit crimes. That's the way to set it up. And if not, then you're going to end up being homeless on the street digging out of trash cans. There's really no safety net to help you out here. That's the environment you're in. And they set things up so that, okay, if you want to be the honest citizen, you're going to work for someone else. The work that you do helps that someone else to not do work in order to live. Oh, you might say, oh, but they're working. Not like you. All they do is happen to look at the numbers and say, I got this much profit now. So I think I want to have another store bought here. Or I think maybe we should leverage our products and market it to these people or whatever. Those are the type of decisions they make. And then they go home early in the day and play. You're still working. You've given 8 hours of your life, 8 hours that could have been used to benefit yourself, to somebody else, so that they can do all the things you wish you could do. And you're doing this for a small segment of the population. Now, in return, in this harsh environment where you got to depend on yourself, wouldn't you want to at least get a paycheck that, allows you to pay your bills, have a decent place to live, put clothes on your back, and maybe a way of guaranteeing that you at least have a way of staying healthy, or if you can't stay healthy, can get you back from being sick to health, so that you can go back to work and keep doing this? Wouldn't that be a fair exchange, considering, especially since you're not even going to be paid the value that your work deserves? They're making multi-millions and you're barely making thousands. Something that's not right. It's already been established that CEOs make astronomically larger amounts than the average workers. It's obscene. You look at other countries, the gap is not nearly as huge. There's plenty of money that can be put in your pockets to put you in a more comfortable position. But that's not the position that you have. And let's say you're a white-collar worker. You're making a better paycheck. Okay, now you're making a minimum wage, a living wage. You're still not making nearly as much as your work is worth. Say if maybe you're working for Google or something, and even that, you're still not making that much. And let's say you happen to come up with some great idea, or you happen to pull in extra hours, and you do something that really increases the revenue of the company that you're in. You might get what? A bonus? Maybe. You might get a monthly, for the month they give you a bonus, or maybe you got to wait till the end of the year to get that bonus. It's an insult when you think about it, because if you weren't there, if none of you guys were in that place, the guy who ran the company wouldn't have shit, his shareholders wouldn't have shit, CEOs wouldn't have anything. It's on you. You're the guys doing this. You're the guys making them rich. A union is basically your way of telling these rich guys, hey, I'm sacrificing my life, my hours of the day, my talents to making sure you get to have a butler. Can't I at least be able to get some type of concessions here so that I can, be able to live at least baseline comfortably, where I don't really have to worry about where my next meal is coming from, or that I'm going to be able to have benefits for myself and my kids so that they can grow up and have a chance? Is that too much to fucking ask for? The right and the rich are basically saying, yes, that is too much for you to ask for. And if you had any sense of integrity, you'd find that insulting. So to anybody who still wants to demonize unions, and especially the teachers' unions, for daring to say that, hey, we're not having our collective bargaining rights taken away. Who the fuck do you think you are? For anyone who still agrees with the governor that this needs to be stricken out, I just have one more question. Do you have any sense of self-preservation at all? Because I'm seriously beginning to doubt it. Catch you guys later.